fun episode for you today. That's 3 funds because we're talking about investing. We're talking about what's happening in investing today, what's happening in venture capital, where is it here in 2020, and looking ahead to 2021, as we're less than 90 days out from the end of the year, what is to come? Where are the gaps? Where are the opportunities? What technologies and industries should we be looking at as investors, or should we not be looking at as we look for the next year ahead and potentially even further out, as 2020 we know has become a foundational year for so many technologies and so many industries, really building on for what is to come in this next decade. And when this year kicked off, we had a lot of questions and answers, or little answers, I should say, as to where things were or what we shouldn't be investing in. Coming full circle towards the end of the year, we're seeing more funds being created. We're seeing more funds being deployed, capital everywhere throughout the world in new industries and new opportunities. But let's dive into the specifics. And that's what we're going to do here just today on VCTV, and cover all of those areas so that you have the information you need as investors to make the right decisions, and as entrepreneurs to also make the right decisions as well, and to meet some great investors who are investing in your area. With that being said, before we dive into today's topic, a big thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If you like what you're hearing today, click subscribe. And also, if you'd like to be on a show like today, definitely reach out as an investor. We'd love to have your thoughts and insights, whether it's on a topic like today or others. Reach out to Emmanuel, the LATOKEN team, and or myself, and we'll find the right spot for you. Entrepreneurs, less than 90 days. But guess what? We've got a full year ahead of us just after that turn of the year. There is a virtual stage here for you on VCTV to pitch us as investors what you're building and your company. We give you real-time feedback, the chance to build a great relationship with us as investors focused on your area, but also the chance to get exposure to our live audience as well. So do reach out to the team and myself. We'll find the right opportunity and set of investors for you. And a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and Emmanuel for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's dive in. All right. Kevin, welcome back to the show. The man of the hour, the author of authors when it comes to the blockchain industry. A little introduction and a little background on yourself.
Hi. So as you know, Kyle, and maybe some of the viewers do as well. So I started out as a credit analyst working for various banks in the City of London, looking at all the reasons why banks should or should not lend to businesses. Got into business development on the other side, and then left and set up a business finance consultancy back in 24 years ago. Since that time, been working with businesses, helping them to grow and scale, and particularly raise finance. And we both invest and we introduce investors, and we actually, as I say, get involved with those businesses, and we know what they need to be doing to keep other investors happy. So I guess that's me for the moment, and you'll hear more as we go along, I'm sure.
Before we move along, I want to give you a shameless plug. You've written a book around blockchain, a favorite topic of mine and also ours here at VCTV. Quick plug, what is the book and where can everyone find it? And we'll come back to close on that later today as well.
Okay, well, this book actually has been contributed to by people like Dell and IBM and major law firms, so players in the actual market. And it's looking at how businesses of any size, from startups through to multinational corporates, can actually use blockchain in their business to help that business to scale. It's called Growing with Blockchain. You can buy it as an ebook and as paperback on Amazon and in many other normal book retailers. Thank you.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Thank you for I'm glad I got a shameless plug in for you. And don't worry, everyone else, you'll get shameless plugs throughout the show today. Don't you worry. Jordan, welcome to the show. First time with Emmanuel and I here on VCTV. It's a pleasure to have you. A little intro, a little background.
Thanks, Cap. Absolutely. Yeah, really excited to be here. So good morning, everybody. My name is Jordan Euclid. I started my career working in leverage finance for GE Antares Capital. From there, I made the move over to the buy side when I joined the private equity firm Partners Group. Partners Group is a $95 billion global asset manager with assets in private equity, debt, real estate, and infrastructure. So I started with them on the private equity team, working in traditional upper middle market leverage buyout transactions. So typically businesses with enterprise values between 500 million and 2.5 billion. And about 4 years ago, the firm opened up a new North American headquarters in Denver, Colorado, which is what brought me to the city initially. So living in Colorado, I also met my two eventual co-founders, Pete Carabas and Tibby Erdely, working for that firm in Colorado. And naturally, living in the epicenter of the cannabis industry, we saw the massive growth of the industry, all the jobs and tourism it was bringing to the state. And then as we further dug into the industry, we found that for a whole host of reasons, which I'll get into later in the presentation, that the industry today still remains very highly capital constrained. So we found ourselves at this really fortuitous moment in time, living in the epicenter of an industry that had huge tailwinds of growth and demand for capital on the one hand, but a very constrained supply of capital on the other. And so it was with that thesis in mind that we broke off about 2 years ago to form Key Investment Partners. Key is a growth equity firm focused on investing in the emerging cannabis industry. We are targeting predominantly the businesses that are really helping to build the infrastructure of the cannabis industry. So less focused on the cultivators or the dispensaries and more so focused on the software, business services, biotech, and healthcare services that are really helping to grow and scale the cannabis industry for the long term.
Very nice. Biotech was an interesting curveball thrown in there. Most when they're talking about infrastructure in the cannabis industry, it's literally the infrastructure, right? On the grow side or the hardware side or so many other pieces to it. Biotech, food, in some of these areas are typically not spoken about. So thank you for throwing that in there. We're going to come back to that in just a little bit. Lucy, welcome to the show as well. It's a pleasure to have you. A little intro and a little background.
Hi, my name's Lucy Dunnett. Thank you so much for inviting me. Really pleased to be here and nice to meet everyone else on the call. I used to work in wealth management, so I used to advise families on how to invest their money. I worked a lot with individual investors trying to invest into entrepreneurs and helping them to really work out what was most meaningful to them to invest into, not just to do with making money, but to do with finding like real purpose with their investments. And I then actually moved into work for an angel investment platform and worked with angel investors solely and the entrepreneurs as well. And one of the issues that I found was that the entrepreneurs that were doing the most kind of meaningful, useful things for society, like creating solutions for really vulnerable people across society, or for the environment, or for animals, or anything that was sort of really, really purposeful or meaningful, they found it the hardest to get funding. And I realized that there was like a real issue in the finance industry where, you know, anything to do with sort of climate change or many of the kind of global existential issues that we're experiencing at the moment appeared to be very underfunded, and anything to do with just basically building more tech, making loads of money, just making human life bigger and better and was just really well funded. And that it just didn't seem to me that it was almost like all the B2B solutions that people were providing were getting well funded, whereas helping, you know, vulnerable women who have no access to funds was not well funded. Mm-hmm. So I had this kind of enlightenment moment, and I changed my career completely. And I've now been working with nonprofits who are working much more deeply in solving like real life problems rather than just focusing on returns. And yeah, it's just incredible the work that people are doing. And yeah, I'm very excited to be here because I think there's a real opportunity to combine both making returns with like doing real good in society. And so that's something I'm keen to sort of spread the word about.
I love it. Well, welcome to the show, and there's going to be plenty to talk about, as well as I introduce our next guest who feels very similar around impact investing and also focusing on those that are in the underserved category. I'll just categorize everything in that area as well. And also the Grand Master of artificial intelligence.
I
I
knew
gave
you
you
were gonna
applause.
get
I
started
gave you
again.
applause too.
Here we go again.
I gave you the pause. But welcome to the show, Gary Fowler. I mean, all jokes aside, truly one of the best and brightest in artificial intelligence. For those who have not met Gary or heard him here on BCTV, definitely check out the articles and things that he has written. Also, to the point of Lucy's, he's also focused very heavily on impact investing and looking at the underserved markets around the world and individuals as well. So ton of great work. I shamelessly plug, I'm plugging everybody today, but Gary, to you, my friend, a little intro, a little background.
I don't know what else to say. You've done such a good job.
It's easy.
Well,
you do so many great things.
No, it's great. So my name's Gary Fowler, and I'm a country boy from Pennsylvania. Started my first company over 35 years ago. I just love doing startups. I started the first accelerator in Russia, the #1 private corporate accelerator. EVA, which is a company today, it's a $1 billion unicorn company we started 4 years ago, AI HR Tech. I love it. I'm a curious guy, just love technology, and AI is the new electricity. I'm also interested in impact investing and how we can make our own dent in the universe. I wrote an article about a week ago in Forbes called 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry. Nikola Tesla's dream comes true, the democratization of opportunity. And I really believe that, we are in a next wave, and it's coming true today. It started 7 months ago, 8 months ago, when we went down this journey with the pandemic. And here we are in Zoom, right, which has changed everything. I mean, I've been on calls today with Kuwait, Dubai, Russia, Belarus, all over. I mean, it's amazing, actually. And I'm much more efficient, although I sit a lot. I really do sit a lot. I don't know about everybody here, but I'm like, seriously, I think we should have some new kind of, seating, new chairs, massage chairs, different. So
I couldn't agree more.
so it's amazing. Anyhow, and I do drive a lot in my car, a lot more. In fact, I just bought a car this morning because I just like to go out every once in a while and drive around because I'm so crazy about being cooped up. Anyhow, this is a dawn of a new era. This opportunity that we have, this pandemic has really digital transformed the world. And the companies that are out there today that are taking advantage of it, that do take advantage of it in a very positive way, have an unprecedented, I've never seen anything like it. I've been through so many waves. I started first e-commerce consulting company years ago. And people said, oh, e-commerce isn't going to take off. Here we are. But this is different. Look at all, yeah, exactly. There's 33 zettabytes of data. If we look at how much data there is in the world today, we could take CDs, stack them up, DVDs, to the moon back and forth 23 times. There's that much data. And it's growing exponentially, 60% per year. So this is an opportunity for artificial intelligence to not be just smart, but intelligent, and help us in all kinds of different ways with transportable models. And we need to make sure we have the right kind of training set. So anyhow, love AI. Any questions, let me know.
Absolutely. And thank you, Gary. And last but not least, Noble, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. A little intro, a little background for everyone who may not already know you.
Hi, my name is Noble Dracone. I'm the founder of Dracone Capital Partners. I'm also an advisor for M Accelerator LA. We believe in augmented reality, virtual reality. We believe that it intersects, with Gary talking about AI, that, it's all part of this mixed reality AI. We also like the idea of essential services and believe that for a long time to come, things have changed. So happy to be here, Kyle.
Wonderful. And welcome all of you. It's a pleasure to share the stage with you today in this exciting Zoom, many window environment that we have. But with that being said, I mean, Gary kind of teed us up, as each of you did, in different ways. Things have changed very dramatically here in 2020, but it's also a new decade. So in all fairness, we're looking towards a new decade ahead, where the convergence of technology has come together much faster than anyone expected. A lot of the technologies that we're going to be talking about today have been in discussion for decades in some cases, and teased that they would finally be here and finally work and they'd finally be a part of our lives. Well, we're now at that moment. When we look at the artificial intelligence, Gary and I have spoken on previous shows about how AI has been in our worlds for decades. Noble and I have talked about AR and VR respectfully on how we've had those in different waves, and it's always been a part of our lives, or would be, and finally here we are. Kevin as well, we've talked about blockchain and fintech, and finally we're starting to see this acceptance of blockchain and this change dramatically in financial technologies from us as consumers all the way through enterprise and all the way down to the infrastructure. And then both Lucy and Jordan as well, what you're mentioning from non-traditional, or what has been non-traditional investments around tech, are now becoming very traditional. They are becoming a part of the conversation. They have to be, right? When it comes again to impact or the underserved and sustainability, that has to be a part of your thesis, or is a part of people's theses now. And Jordan, when you're mentioning cannabis and that entire infrastructure around it, all the way to bio, to our food, to the grows, I mean, this is again something that people are investing in. And so as I tee that up, I want to come to each of you and hear your thoughts on the current state of investments today, not only in 2020, but looking ahead in 2021, where things are and where things are going. So Kevin, let's start with you. Current state of venture capital and investments today.
Well, I guess we have to start with where we are at the moment, don't we? With that horrible COVID-19 reference that we've all agreed that we've pretty much done with. But having said that, we are where we are. But in my experience, I've been speaking to family offices and crowdfunding platforms and VCs, and there's still a lot of money out there looking for good investments. Certainly some of those VCs, those family offices are sitting on their hands a bit because they're having to prop up their existing portfolios. But there's a lot of others that have funded, they've got big pots of cash and they're looking for the right investments. Having cash is no good for them on their return on investment for the portfolio as a whole. But where that money is going, I think very much comes back to what Lucy was saying about. I think there's a big shift now that people are looking ever more closely at doing the right thing and investing in the right thing. And just as the whole lockdown situations around the world has made people look more closely at perhaps at the environment, because they've had to walk around and not drive anywhere and not lead life as they used to. And it's made them appreciate that air quality and buying your food locally and just all those things. It's just made people take that step back. And I think investors, as for everybody from individuals through to funds, have become ever more focused over the recent years on impact investing and looking at changing the world for good. And all of that's been brought in as well with the big climate change debates and all of those other areas. So I'm seeing, I'm sure what everybody else is seeing, the conversations are very much moving towards investing in the right sort of sectors, the right projects in terms of impact investment and doing good. But likewise, I'm also involved in trying to assist individuals to develop businesses where they themselves are not in the best position, shall we say. So if you look at any of the statistics, it's frightening. So I'm a white middle-aged male, and it has to be said that, you know, I'm as privileged as it gets in terms of attracting investment, etc. If you're a female, or certainly if you're from a lesser privileged sort of view in many people's eyes, it's actually much more difficult to get investment. So I'm involved in all sorts of different organizations and structures in trying to drive money there. But it's been seen that is happening very rapidly, still from very small numbers. If you look at investments from VCs into female-led businesses, it's 1 or 2%. If you then look at black female-led businesses, it's 0.1%. It's horrific. But those numbers are increasing rapidly now, albeit from a very low percentage. So I think, you know, investment is moving into the right areas. however you want to define right.
I agree, and there's so much happening. And with that, I want to come to Lucy next. Lucy, what are you seeing as the current state of venture capital? Furthering on Kevin's point, to where are you seeing things today with those that you've been working with, whether it's from the angels, the family offices, or those that might be sitting in between?
Thanks so much, Kyle. And yeah, Kevin, I completely agree. It's brilliant to see the change happening. It's just, as you say, the base is so low that like any movement upwards is going to take a really long time. But yeah, so I think for me, I think that the hardest thing for me is that I've actually been an entrepreneur as well, and I've tried running a business that was purpose led. And, you know, I had to go for Innovate UK grant funding because I realized that there weren't any investors that were going to be interested in what I was doing. And it was very tough. And I realized I either went down the sort of very slow, patient, kind of charitable led funding route, where I was going to be provided with much more support and patience to try out what I was doing, without kind of ruining people's lives, if you know what I mean. And then the unfortunate thing was that the VC-led route to me just appeared, it was like this hole of death. You know, it was like, once you're in, you've got to meet these targets, and then you've got to find a private equity group, and then you've got to IPO. And by the way, you've got to be making like £100 billion in the first, 10 years of your business's existence. And you're going to be managing like at least 100 staff within the next 10 years if you want this to work financially. And, I was sitting there thinking, okay, that's clearly not what I want. I don't want to not see my family. I don't want to not see my friends. And yeah, I've seen other females go down that route and have miscarriages and marriages break up. And yeah, I've seen men go down that route and have mental health breakdowns and ruin their lives as a result of following the dream. And I think the problem is that the structure of the finance and the industry is, the expectations on an individual entrepreneur are just so high that there are very few people that can actually meet those expectations without having some kind of mental or health breakdown at some point in between. And if it doesn't hit them during the journey of the business, then it will hit them later on in life. So it's not like, every entrepreneur that is a success wins long term. Often, they experience difficulties later on. Some are lucky and have none, but I don't know many that have had no issues with growing businesses quickly. So I think for me, what I'm seeing that's much more effective is this concept of like social impact bonds, or this combination of sort of public money and much more patient capital, where they can see in the heart and mind of the entrepreneur that the entrepreneur is genuinely interested in doing something that's going to really help society or really help the most disadvantaged and the most vulnerable. And they're happy to support that entrepreneur in exploring those ideas before the dream is realized, but also prepared to lose that money if it doesn't work out the first time, because they know that individual will then go on to do great things. So I think with there have been a number of examples of social impact bonds where they're outcome focused. That the money is given from the social investors, and the government will say, if X, Y, and Z outcomes happen, like for example, they did one on young people and said, if these young people stay in education until they're 16 as a result of doing these training courses with them, then we will give a return to the investors, because it takes the onus off the government from doing that work. So it's a private project that's funded by private investors, And only if the outcome is reached, then the government pays the investors their money back and a return. And often those projects are allowed to take, 10, 20 years. So there's much more, it's much more patient capital. And the goal of the main focus is on the outcome. It's not on the returns. And I think the problem with like the VC and private equity industry, and I used to work at Berenberg, an investment bank, and it's just the pressure to return investment returns higher than your competitor is just so intense that you can't escape that reality. It's not possible to. So it in that structure, it just doesn't work. So I think the movement of VC into a more patient capital and accepting of sort of different structures of finance, I think, is what I would like to see more of. And I don't know, I'd love to hear if any of you guys have seen any of that at all.
I mean, sitting on all sides of the table, it's difficult for everyone, right? As an investor, you want the return, but you also have to understand you're investing in a human being or beings as well. And so there's only so much pressure you can add, but you should also be, not to use a term that's overused, you should also be helpful and be supportive as well. I mean, part of making an investment is taking that inherent risk. On the flip side, as a founder, you take in capital, hoping that it can grow and hoping that you can provide a return, not just to your investors who supported you, but also to yourself for the sacrifice and the time that you put in, because things are very different as a founder versus an employee of a company. I think that's a very obvious statement, but again, it is a very tough thing on all sides because you do have to balance. I mean, if you can't handle right, I say that very respectfully. If you can't handle that understanding of balance, then it may not be something for you to take capital. And that, as we've mentioned, it's something you should be focused on building a business that has sustainable revenue and that you may not need that growth capital, because that pressure is going to come. Pressure happens with any job or any investment as well. It's just a matter of balance. And that's easy to say. Let me add that. But it's also something that needs to be said, having sat on both sides of the table. When you are a founder building something and you're going to take capital in, you're taking a risk. You're taking on capital. Jordan, I see you putting your shoulders up. I'm going to come to you next on this. You're taking a risk. As an investor, you're putting capital into a company into a bet for a team. You're taking a risk. And there's a good chance it may not pan out. We've heard stats for years, 90% of companies don't work. 90% chance your investment doesn't come back to you. No matter how much pressure, how much intensity you put on, 90%. But in truth, that stat is actually a little bit adjusted for, and it's more like 60%. So you still got a good chance as well. And so, Lucy, I think you bring up a great point, is that there is that mentality, that mindset that can be so difficult for a founder, but also for the investors that doesn't get talked about. And around everybody, it needs to be a supportive process. And Jordan, I want to come to you further on that point, because before we get into cannabis, because I saw you kept shaking your shoulders. So what are your thoughts furthering?
Yeah, no, Kyle, I think you brought up a lot of really good points. And Lucy, I fully understand with your point as well. And I think it's important to note the risk of the underlying asset class of venture capital, right? So limited partners who deploy money into venture capital funds, right? They know that their capital is going to typically be tied up for 10 years on paper. Realistically, your fund's going to need to be extended, and it's longer term than that. To Kyle's point, a significant number of startups end up failing. And so to equate for both the illiquidity and the risk premiums of the asset class, you really do need to expect that the fund generates excessive returns well above what you could just get it by investing in the S&P 500 or publicly traded large cap stocks, right? So I fully understand the concern, but I also think from an investment perspective and an asset allocation perspective, venture capital really does need to have very excessive returns in order to justify it. And so one of the things that we really try to counsel entrepreneurs on, especially in the earlier stage, is really a combination of both what Lucy and Kyle were just saying, is that, do you want to run a lifestyle business where you can be your own boss, you generate sufficient cash flow to support you and your family, and that's what you're really looking for in life? Or do you want to be a Mark Zuckerberg and transform the world and be a billionaire, right? I mean, those are two very different things, and there's no right question for everyone, but certainly the venture-backed people are going to, the venture capital financiers are looking for the latter in terms of being able to say, we need to generate these returns, 20% plus IRRs, in order to justify to our investors that this is an asset class they should be backing.
Absolutely. And Gary, I see you. Oh, go ahead, Lucy. Go ahead.
Jordan, I completely agree with you. I completely agree on like all levels. The thing that I find frustrating just generally in finance is that if you think about all the people that want to run lifestyle businesses, as people call them, as VC people call them, they might be doing something that's really useful and meaningful for their community and society. But because all the money, like literally 99% of the money, is in VC and private equity, they find it really difficult to access money. And basically the only places they can really go to access money is like foundations or government. And so it's frustrating that the majority of people who can manage a sort of lifestyle business, you know, find it really hard to access money because there isn't any, and all the rest of the money is in the VC, and the VC money is all chasing like a very few number of entrepreneurs that are capable of doing what VC need them to do. And so I think there's a massive disconnect there, and there's a huge gap for this kind of VC connecting with kind of public money and restructuring it so that there's a lot more potential for more entrepreneurs doing more good to be funded.
There is, and one thing I'll add on that, Lucy, too, is there is a changing paradigm. So, and Gary, I saw you had on mute, so I want to just one comment is that there is a changing paradigm in the type of investments that investors are looking for, which is exciting. Again, this has been a transformation here in 2020, but also I think something we're going to see going forward in the future is that there are different types of businesses that are starting to come to light as investment opportunities. And you're starting to see more diversification from individual investors, high net worths, to family offices, to venture, which, remember, to our audience too, venture capital is not the only place that you can take capital. There are angel investors, there are family offices, there are endowments, there are grants, there are so many different ways that you can take capital in for the growth of your company. That's not just a loan, number one. Number two, depending on the type of business you're building, there are so many people out there. It's about access, finding them, and then two, building the relationship with them to make sure that they are open, they are comfortable, and they are interested in what you're building. Because if they're not, it doesn't matter what you're building, and you don't have a relationship with them, it's not going to go anywhere. So I think you're again spot on, and those are things to remember. Is you still got to build those relationships. There's plenty of investors out there, and there's so many things that are changing. Again, this was on a path. We're even seeing more of this. Gary, I'm going to come to you here in a second, and then Noble. There's been so much change happening that more people in general are now able to start investing. Right? The rules of investors and how an investor was defined, Noble's shaking his head because he knew I was going to ask this to him. What was defined as an investor has changed and will continue to drastically change, which will open up those doors, I think, in my opinion, Lucy, adding on to you, I think those doors will continue to change, continue to open up opportunities so much more for some of the things that you mentioned, as well as more of us are able to invest and not have to reach certain thresholds that have been limiting to so many. So great point, absolutely great point. Gary, to you, I see you unmuted, so I want to come to you, but also where are you seeing things moving from a current state of venture capital?
Yeah, so, the first company that I did, I didn't know that you should get venture capital, so I actually took personal loans. And then what I did is I bet the farm essentially. I would use my deals that I would got and get loans against the deal. So I never took regular funding, although it was really funny. The banks came after me. They wanted to invest in my projects, and to take a piece of it. And I'm like, why would I do that? I'm the one who's taking millions of dollars worth of risk. I'm like 22 years old. Like, why? I couldn't figure it out. It's like, this is stupid. Why would I give you something for nothing? I said, I'm credit worthy now. So I did it by loans, and so that's how I built it. I never took any VC money. But on the other hand, so as an investor and also with Eva, so we've taken close to $20 million. And so on my first round, in 3 months, I raised $4 million. So, and then we got another three, and then, on and on. Is it easy? Absolutely not. Really, it's not easy, but there are some secret sauces. And let me tell you a little bit about them. There is, and Kyle's part of the club, and Noble's part of the club. I'm sure some of I know those two directly because we spent a lot of time, but we're in Silicon Valley. So my office is in Menlo Park, so close to Sand Hill Road. So I see the VCs in the city. I've been hired by the VCs. They funded my companies. It's like a secret squirrel society, I would say. It's, they really do deal on trust. And especially now with this digital transformation, and I've raised money, Kevin, and by the way, in the UK too, and Lucy. But it's based on trust. A lot of it's based on trust. And once you start in those circles, it's really interesting. It's incredible. It's like sales 101, because once one VC gets in and you get a lead investor, then they all want to get in. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's so
It's
crazy.
a domino effect. It just waterfalls.
It's unbelievable. And so I know with Eva, I went to the Band of Angels. And in fact, my partner, David, who's a billionaire now, he ended up becoming one of the band in Silicon Valley. But when I first went into the Band of Angels, I don't know, we're not sure. Most of them were people that have had success in companies in the Valley. They've had IPOs, et cetera, moderately wealthy. But I'm like, boy, this is going to be hard. And then what happens? I happen to go out to dinner. I meet a VC. He said he's really interested, and they invested $4 million. Actually, 3 in 1, 3 from them, 1 from, and in like 3 weeks, So I think that, I also, it's a challenge because I know as an investor myself, I'm not patient. I want returns. I know it's tough, but I want to make sure that my money's working for me. If it's not working, I got a problem. So on one side of it as investor, I want to make sure it works. On the other side, I do see a lot. We're building a $100 million impact fund in Atlanta, Georgia, to serve the Black community because there aren't not enough Black executives. And I've been passionate about this for almost 13 years. So there are opportunities that companies do understand they need to make an impact on the environment, social impacts, et cetera. So I do see that opening up, but it's still back to the basics. I know with Click Software, we brought the company from Haifa, Israel, over to the US. And when we're going down through the IPO and NASDAQ, I could see there was a lot of marketing involved and bringing up the visibility to be able to get things moving. It was actually incredible. Honestly, from my perspective, it's like 80% marketing and 20% results, just from my own perspective in terms of raising money. The marketing stuff really, really works. Position yourself right, using your business contacts, especially now with where we are in the Zoom era, using a trusted network to get an introduction. A friend to do an introduction for it works. So
and that, it's just to further on to that. Those introductions can mean everything, and just one can change everything for you as well. So we've talked about this on previous shows. Noble, I'm coming to you next here. But we've talked about this on previous episodes of just reaching out, cold reach out. There's more investors out there who are saying, pitch me, reach out to me, DM me, direct message, reach out to me, whatever. There are more people that are willing to talk or to get in touch than ever. And I think all of us can say we've been in this game for a little bit on all sides. We'll just say that. Won't date anybody. We'll just say that.
Kyle, you say that, but I had one of the largest VC firms that I met here on VC TV that was here in one of the earlier shows with you. And I directly had a conversation with him. I'm not going to mention him, but they said, listen, I've heard it multiple times, 3 or 4 times, even here. I've heard directly, if I don't get a friendly introduction, I don't listen. Do you know how many emails I get and LinkedIn messages? I heard it directly. So as much as they say, you know what it is for them? They just want the deals to keep flowing in, even though they're really busy. They don't want to miss out on something, just like I don't want to miss out, right? So you want more than you can handle.
And I'm with that, but again, having been on both sides of that, you never know. And a good point though, Gary, you never know what can happen. Do not stop yourself from sending those. Just a second, Gary. No, do not stop yourself as an entrepreneur from sending those messages, because you don't know. And remember, we've talked about this on VCTV before. And Noble, I apologize. We've kept you waiting for a while. We've talked about this on VCTV. Investors, specifically funds, have a mandate to spend and invest capital each year. So you never know if you're going to be the lucky one. And I will tell you this, again, both sides of the table, it does not take one investor. It does not take one message to one investor to all of a sudden get your round funded. It is going to take you hundreds of reach outs, and you need to be prepared for that. A part of those reach outs need to be a combination of, and I won't give any kind of percentage split because I don't think that's appropriate right now, but it needs to be a combination of people you know, your network, one, small little sliver of VCTV, shameless shout out, a portion of those that are direct introductions from within your network, second tier, and a little bit of cold outreach. Because again, you never know who you're going to get into's inbox. You never know who's going to open it, and you never know if they're going to bite. All right. So when you look at your spread, you're going out there investing. Those are the categories that you should be looking at as a founder. So with that, I'm going to pause because we're going to keep going down this rabbit hole, and we're almost at time here at the lightning round. So with that, Noble, take us to where we should be focusing. Where are the opportunities today? Where should people be focusing and placing their bets today more than ever in terms of opportunities and technologies? Oh, Noble? All right, no worries, Noble. We're going to come. Oh, there you go.
Okay. So yeah, real quick. Thanks, Kyle. Just to add on that last note, you know, with the new rules that they've changed from what's considered an accredited investor, things have changed in a big way. The reality is there's $9 trillion sitting around in IRA accounts. And what we do is we consult people all the time on how to find and tap into that access, get access to that database. We have 900,000 of those people directly, in which we have a whole team that calls them. So and on behalf of creating that warm relationship. So it's, you know, there's a lot of things going on that's changing the landscape in a big way. But, you know, it's always that same thing. If you're not willing to sacrifice, you're not going to get what you're going to get exactly what you expect. And so this whole lifestyle is a sacrifice. I've been doing it for 26 years. I started when I was 17, got my license as a broker when I was 19, run my own hedge funds, work with family offices, the whole nine. And it's a requirement that you just have to be willing to make the sacrifice. You know, what we're looking forward towards the future is that I think that there's a lot of, you know, new things happening all over the place. You know, I love NFTs in the DLT sector. I love what's happening in DeFi. I like the jump between, you know, wax between EOS and back to Ethereum and creating an income stream. You know, things are moving in a direction so fast that, you know, Gary hit the nail on the head. Nobody wants to miss out on deal flow because they don't know where the next big idea is going to come from and who it's going to come from. It may not be a friendly. It may be some random person with, you know, 2 or 3 pieces of code that change the world. And so everybody wants to be in the mix. I think as entrepreneurs, though, we have to always focus that nobody cares about what we're doing. And so the reality is you have to be so fixated and focused on achieving your goals and dreams and bringing it to market that you have to kind of sidestep the need for outward validation from investors, PEs, VCs, you name the alphabet. The reality is you have to be so fixated and focused on your vision that regardless of, you know, race, sex, etc., you need to be the one who drives the ship. And then people will get attracted to that. You know, leadership is magnetizing. And so if you're putting yourself in the right position, that's really all you can do, but continuously drive your message and drive your concepts forward. You know, I'm the CEO of an AR company. Everybody gave up on AR and extended reality 3.5 years ago. All the VCs literally abandoned the space. Yet we've got 4 AR projects coming out that are connected to DLT, NFTs, and and extended reality. So all of that, as Gary said, is out of our own pockets. It's coming out of, either our close friends, our network, and we're driving it forward. And now people are starting to see what we're putting out, and they're coming back around because they realize this is the future. So I'm really excited along all fronts that I'm glad there's impact investing. Glad people are starting to change their mindsets. Nothing ever begins without the entrepreneur first having conviction.
Absolutely. All right. So everyone, we're going to come around as we are at the lightning round here. So I want to make sure you get in your opportunities in addition to what Noble just mentioned. And also not only that, but then where can everyone find you online as well? So Kevin, let's start with you. Thank you, Noble. Kevin, where are the areas of opportunities people should be paying attention to, and where can they find you online to continue the conversation?
I think the areas of opportunity are all of those, obviously, that are going to be well placed for post-COVID areas. So, well, we can all see, we've all seen what areas have strengthened and what ones have sort of weakened, as it were. So I think there's huge opportunities out there. Out of any difficult situation, it's where all the best companies grow. So look around, look at the gaps, go for it. You can find me on LinkedIn, Kevin R. Smith, with an MSC after it on LinkedIn, because Smith's not a rare name. And I write a lot of published articles on early stage businesses and such things. So constantly writing things that are going on the boomandpartners.co.uk website and on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Jordan, to you, where should people be focusing their opportunity, or where they should be looking out for opportunities, and where can everyone find you online?
Great, thanks, Kyle. Yeah, and obviously, I think that cannabis is one of the most attractive sectors in a post-COVID environment. When we started fundraising in early 2019, recognized that we were raising at the top of a 10-year bull market cycle, and so because of that, specifically picked a sector that we knew would be recession resilient. Obviously, didn't pick a pandemic, but as we've seen play out as we expected, cannabis, like alcohol, like tobacco, has proven to be a very recession resilient industry, because when times are good, people want to consume, and when times are bad, people want to consume. And you've actually seen pretty dramatic spike increased in consumption post-COVID of cannabis. You've also seen that almost every state that has legalized cannabis has deemed it an essential business post-COVID, like a lot of other businesses, which is pretty fascinating to have the industry go from fully illegal several years ago to now being deemed an essential business, which I think, again, gives more credibility to the fact that it's really just a question of when federal legalization is going to occur, not if it's going to take place. And then the other thing I'd highlight is that given the fact that a lot of US state governments, which were already starved for tax revenues, have only had that situation been exacerbated by the COVID pandemic, we think that's going to cause a lot more regulatory incentives for more states to legalize. So in the November election, for example, I think you'll likely see states like New Jersey and Arizona come online with recreational cannabis. And if New Jersey falls, then we expect New York, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut to follow shortly thereafter. So you can see a pretty dramatic tidal wave effect. And then, at the federal level in particular, if either the presidency or the control of the Senate go to the Democrats, I think that'll really speed things up on the federal level too. So cannabis is a great place to invest. You can find me at keyinvestmentpartners.com, Jordan Euclid on LinkedIn, or jordan@keyinvestmentpartners.com is my email.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Lucy, to you, same question, opportunity areas, and then where can everyone find you online?
Hi, this is really interesting. I'm really enjoying hearing everyone's ideas. So thanks, Jordan. I love the cannabis thing. I've read a lot about it. So it sounds like a really good industry. I don't really look short term in terms of investments. So I'm going to be sort of quite outside the box here. But for me, I think the investment opportunities long term are in food and water, because I think one of the biggest things that we're going to really struggle with over the next kind of 50 years is how do we feed people and how do we get enough water, clean water to people with all the climate changes that are going to happen over the next kind of 20, 50 years. So I think there's a lot of like big opportunities in that area, and I think there's clearly a huge amount of work to do. But I think there's some great opportunities in the kind of regenerative agriculture sector where you can look at testing ways of doing things, and I think more and more so, sort of farming will come into cities, etc. I'm sure many of you have seen the opportunities of sort of indoor farming and things. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, probably the best place. But I think the other thing I'd just like to do a shout out for is one of the companies that I believe is doing a really, really great job at helping big corporations do massive transitions at the moment, because they are all kind of having this enlightenment moment where they're realizing that what they're doing at the moment is not going to work long term, is an organization called the Maturity Institute. And they effectively are helping companies to become a lot more sustainable using very, very detailed kind of impact measurement internally. So yeah, please check them out and see if you can introduce them into your own company.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Lucy. And Noble, to you, where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, it's easy to find me, Noble Dracone, on LinkedIn, or my last name, Dracone, at Twitter. That's it.
Awesome, Gary. Sorry,
Yeah,
Noble, I
so,
didn't. Apologies. Yep.
And Kyle, you're right. You got to stay positive. And if they don't try, if you don't try, you've 100% chance of failure to go out and raise money. So it's really important. And like Lucy, I also, our mutual astronaut friend now told me, there's 6 billion Earth-like planets within the Milky Way galaxy, and now estimated to be 200 trillion galaxies within the universe. We've not even started our adventure yet. And non-potable water, since 1957, the average, the sea level in Florida on the beaches is going up about 8 inches. And there's only 26 inches on average on sea level in Florida. So we've got some serious issues we need to resolve. Potable, non-potable water, desalination, a lot of things. The good news is, humanity's been resilient and we've always overcome. And those are some great investment opportunities. The population is 7.9 billion today and growing. So those issues are in front of us. Land use to be more efficient and effective. But remember, artificial intelligence can help. So you can reach me, Gary Fowler, LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. I have a show. It actually is today. The top VCs in the Silicon Valley sponsor me. It's a VC task force. I do it just to help startups. And I have it today. I highlight the top startups in the world every 2 weeks. And I also have another show called GST Presents. I had Guy Kawasaki last time, and we talk about some of the most interesting aspects of technology on a global basis. So please join me there. And thanks, Kyle. This is great.
Awesome. Thank you all so very much for your time and for your thoughts and insights. To our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today here at VC TV. Thank you, Gary. As an investor, to share your thoughts and insights, or as an entrepreneur to join us on the virtual stage and have a chance to pitch us, build those foundational relationships. Thank you, Noble, and get the chance to meet some great investors that are focused on your areas as well of interest. Thank you, Jordan. With that, a big thank you as well to Emmanuel and to the entire LA Token team for making VC TV possible. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere at Kyle Ellicott, and we'll be back here in just a little bit.